What's up? Shouldn't you be reviewing a game?
Jim, remember when I proudly declared, I'm going to review all Deus Ex games inside and out?
Invisible War.
Invisible War.
That game sucks.
I wouldn't say it sucks, but
It does.
maybe. I mean, there are some good ideas, but the execution was often just terrible. Anyway, let's get on the usual order, starting with the story.
The endings of all the previous games contradict one another, but the developers decided that they would take all the endings, tie them together, and make one big canon thing out of it. This created a ton of plot holes for the start of the game.
Let's start at the beginning of the story first, shall we?
Fine.
The story starts off in Chicago as we witness one person using a nanobomb to destroy the entire city?
We then take control of our character, a Tarsus Academy student in Seattle. And his name is...
Max Slushy!
Actually, it's Alex D. As we wake up in our room within the Academy, we notice something is off. The Academy is being attacked by the Church, a radical religious group that's at odds with the WTO.
The WTO is basically the world police at this point in time.
Anyway, we escape alongside most of our classmates.
Before you start asking, no, it doesn't matter whether the character is female or not. The story always plays out the same. Once we hit Seattle, we have the choice of either joining the WTO or the Church to achieve our goals. But does that choice even matter?
Not really. Once you get to the point of choosing between one of the 4 groups, you realize that none of your previous deeds throughout the game mattered.
There are really nonsensical events during the story, like the following. You have a mission of either assisting the WTO or the Church. You then end up doing the job for the WTO. The Church, as a result, sends assassins after you. So you kill them, which is very easy to do. They seriously have the balls to demand your loyalty. This is so stupid, but gets even dumber once you learn of the big plot twist. No, wait, there are 2 big plot twists that directly contradict what the Church is doing here. What the f***?
There are several times like this within the story where the writing either just goes out into the left field or it just outright contradicts canon events of the first game.
Also, not having the possibility to refuse either side really bugged me. When I played the game, I was pretty disgusted with both the WTO and especially the Church. But instead of offering me a choice of choosing neither, I had to work with them. While that works in other games, it doesn't work here because the story has more than enough potential for a renegade plot. In fact, I think focusing on only a renegade story would have been more beneficial.
While the story starts strong, it falls apart very quickly and even gives you the choice of joining the 4th group. That one that served as the primary antagonist during the entire game, dedicated to killing you throughout the entire game.
The story in of itself isn't terrible, but even as its own game it fails to keep up with itself. Let's get to the most important aspect of the game though. The gameplay.
I detect someone needs to get something off their chest.
No, not yet. Not yet.
The game tries to copy its prequel, but it fails to be as good.
Or, to be precise, it attempts to make the gameplay more intuitive and simple, but that's not necessarily a good thing. It tries way too hard to simplify established mechanics and forgets everything around it in the process. I mean, you can still sneak or blast your way through, but the very claustrophobic level design and other issues really limit the amount of fun you can have with the game.
The worst part of the entire game, though, is definitely...
Wait a second there. I think we should cover the basics first.
Okay then. The game tries to be like the original Deus Ex game. You can still do the basics like crouching, open vents, stuff like that, but the fundamentals were changed.
Especially in terms of complexity. The previous game had skills, and while a few of them were complete and utter garbage, There was no need to scratch the entire system.
Or the light shadow mechanics, the different kinds of ammunition, a weapon system that made sense, lockpicks.
To be fair, there are two lights in this game. Dark and not dark.
Are you seriously trying to defend this?
Oh, don't get me wrong. I dislike how the changes were implemented, but the idea behind some of these changes weren't entirely wrong. We didn't need the skills that were garbage. We didn't need weapon skills that contradict the fact that the main character is trained in shooting, and we necessarily didn't need more types of ammunition. In fact, I think it would have been better to have one type of ammunition for each weapon and lock stuff like more precision or acid ammo behind weapon upgrades.
There is one type of ammunition for all weapons now, meaning that rocket launchers use the same ammo as pistols and all share the same bullet pool. What is in these magazines anyway?
Fondue is a classic Swiss tradition. It's become a great party favorite in American homes. We're going to slowly add the white wine to the pot. A final classic addition to the fondue is adding kirsch, a little pinch of salt and pepper, and I like nutmeg and a little paprika just for some rounded, warm spice.
Remember the lockpicks? They're gone. Now everything is opened with multi-tools. And there is a delicious bug with this. The developer programmed multi-tools wrong in a way that, while all of them function the same, some have a different item code. It's not simply an item stack. You can pick up almost all of the available multi-tools you could have in a stack, and then pick up another one, and because it has a different code, it gets its own stack by itself, even though it could easily fill in that other stack.
The inventory was reworked. Everything takes a slot in your inventory now, and this may seem to be an improvement at first glance. It is really not. Inventory management was important in the previous game. It left you with enough space to let you bring the items you want with you. You're outright spammed with so much useless stuff that your inventory fills up before you can even leave the tutorial.
That's not the only mechanic that has been simplified though. The developer also felt the need to hit the level design with all they've got.
Oh my, here we go.
The complexity of level design has been significantly reduced to the point of each area feeling the same. Emphasis on area. The levels are so small and there are tons of loading times, and these can right off.
Unless you play the game, you can't possibly imagine the annoyance with these loading times. What exactly is wrong with them? How about everything you can screw up? In order to load the next small ass shit map, the game has to shut down and restart in order to even work. How the did this disaster happen? A game that has to restart every single time to load? The areas themselves are small as shit, so why do you have to load so often?
Don't forget the backtracking.
Right, the backtracking.
Most of the quests in this game, none of them have any real consequence at all, by the way, include heavy backtracking.
Which means that there are those 5 minutes in the game on several occasions in which your game has to restart around 8 times. Isn't that fun?
The quest design itself is bad as well. Outside of the last two bigger areas, none of your choices have any long-term consequences or make you feel involved for that matter.
I'll give the game this though. If the game doesn't dig its own plot holes or screws up characters from the first game, the writing is usually solid. While most characters you interact with are bland, they're at least not painfully annoying and portray their one stereotype well.
You're actually praising that.
I'll take what I can get.
Stealth has also been reworked for the worse.
In my opinion, A game that relies on scripted guard appearances out of nowhere, or scripted guard spawns once you pass a certain checkpoint, is, if not tied into the story or properly explained, an absolute no-go for a stealth game. It simply means that the game is not confident in its own mechanics and sees enemy increase as the only possibility for increasing difficulty, which is a bad train of thought to begin with for any kind of game.
Also remember the awesome biomods of the first game? The amount of biomod augmentations have been reduced. What a surprise.
The game bombards you with electric cells to recharge your energy, and many mods are outright useless. For example, there's a biomod for increasing toxic resistance, but the healing biomod makes that one useless. Same goes for the biomod that devours corpses to heal you. Just take the best biomods. For example, the strength upgrade never consumes energy, is great for dealing lots of melee damage, and also increases inventory space. What about the hacking upgrade, which reduces your boring waiting time until the device is hacked yet again?
At least the game tried to freshen things up with normal biomods and black market biomods, but at least half of all possible augmentations consist of useless gimmicks, but there are a few good ones that are actually pretty decent, even though many of the mods are dumbed down and just cut and paste from the previous game.
Again, I like the ideas they had for making the Deus Ex gameplay more compatible to the broad masses, but some of these mechanics don't work well.
The game simplifies too much and ruins most of the fun in the process, outside of the number of technical problems that also ruin the fun.
Taking the atrocious loading aside, there are plenty of bugs and glitches to go. It doesn't help that the AI is outright terrible, as it can't even go upstairs. The graphics look bad, and it's not even saved by a somewhat unique look. I have to say though that there were certain moments in the game where I was seriously impressed by what the developers were able to do. These very few moments, which amount to a total count of around 3 times, were my personal highlights in the game.
Don't you have to say something about the German in the game?
Do I have to?
Hey, if you don't want to, I will, but I don't speak German, so who knows how well that'll turn out.
Alright, fine. Let's go down a list here. Bad accents.
Observing the natural order. I do not understand why the WTO would agree to a summit with these freaks.
Yep. Wrong spelling of German words. Yes. Stuff that doesn't make. Why is the first thing you see in a German police station a room with big fat evidence written above it?
Are you finished? Because there are still technical issues left, like the physics, the wrong text,
or the terrible grenade throwing, that enemies don't have falling damage but you do, that conversations are sometimes bugged, that you sometimes can progress to the next area because the game fails to trigger the event and you're then stuck in the game. The sound bugs, more physics bugs that are actually kind of awesome. The list just goes on and on. It's unbelievable how this game could have been released like this. Oh, before I forget, remember the, in my opinion, disappointing endings of the first game? I found the endings here to be more rewarding. Though I was shocked about all the endings in one regard. The game has no credits after the epilogue. In fact, the game just throws you back to the main menu waiting for you to manually click on the credits there.
And what were your thoughts on the music?
Except for the main theme and one more song in the game, it is an average ambient soundtrack at best. It's not a bad soundtrack, by far it isn't, but it's also not amazing, and that's okay.
The soundtrack is just miles behind the first Deus Ex game.
So, what is this game doing good for its genre?
You had fun breaking this game apart?
There are many good ideas in this game. Shooting stuff can be fun, stealth can be very entertaining as well. There are a few noteworthy songs in the game. The writing is at times solid, and some of the scenery can still be amazing if you take your time to look at it. The news were fun to listen to and took the time to flesh out the world.
You already know my opinion about the next one.
What could have been improved?
Rework the entire game. No, wait. Just scratch the name Deus Ex from the title. It's not worthy. It doesn't deserve to be called a Deus Ex game.
Again, I think many ideas were quite interesting, but the execution was abysmal. Bring back the skills or have them in form of weapon upgrades. Fix your numerous technical issues, especially the loading. Fix the writing and rewrite all characters from the first Deus Ex. Fix your many plot holes, fix the AI, just fix everything that's outright flawed. We need bigger areas, additional ways to approach obstacles, more abilities that actually matter. Expand on the idea of having an illegal kind of biomod and hunt the player for even using them. And make the quests matter for the ending. The soundtrack could really use some more energy and power. Honestly, there's just so much to improve here that I think it would be easier to make a completely new game, because the pillars this game's standing on are very wobbly to begin with. Just take the ideas that may have worked and make a new game out of it. Trying to repair this one is probably as time consuming and expensive as making a new one.
Can we give it the final score and go home already?
I didn't enjoy playing it, but I can still see the potential in many of the ideas this game had. The philosophical dilemmas are nicely done if you look past the character inconsistencies an Invisible War gives you. If you look past all the flaws, more than enough to think about. With that said, I think this game is not recommendable to either fans or newcomers. It's playable, but a pain to do so.
This game took a lot of my time. Time I can never get back. I hated the characters. I hated the multi-tool bug that made my already cramped inventory feel like 10 pounds of flour in a 1-pound bag. The plot held choices of little consequence on how you ultimately end the game. Characters, missions, mechanics, all of it pained me. It hurt me. I might have enjoyed one shootout for a few minutes until I just wanted to go home and have a juice box. Some of the tracks in the soundtrack held plot spoilers. Enemies had X-ray vision and super hearing when they had no reason to see me through a wall. Worst of all, restarting to load a map made me wish I could just get that time back even more. I really wanted to enjoy this game the first time I played it, but I couldn't. I give it a 2 and stamp another loading screen on it.
Another loading screen.